I'm not going to lie to you. I'm a little nervous today. One, because this is my home church, and I usually am out there. And unfortunately, I'm a little anxious too as well because Chris is sitting in my seat. Like, everybody has that seat. You feel comfortable. Those of you who went to break, you came back, you went back to the same seat because that's your comfort. Well, that's me. And now he's sitting in my seat, and now I got to look over here at him, and I just kind of have that angst inside me all day long. But also too, as well as I'm nervous because I'm the fitness guy, and I'm talking to you right before lunch. So that third grade fear that we all used to have when you walked into the lunchroom and no one wants to sit with you at the table, that's what's going through me right now with it all. So Roger asked us to be as raw and vulnerable as we wanted to be today. So I figured that I would kind of take you on a little bit different journey, I guess, if you will, than just kind of your typical fitness talk. A lot of times you're going to hear about sets and reps and workouts and do this diet and stuff and whatnot, but I want to take a little bit different angle for you. And in my mind, it's completely natural the way to look at it. Being a dyslexic learner, I always look at things backwards. So it's not starting with the typical things that you would on a regular basis when it comes to a fit and healthy lifestyle. So we're going to start off with just a simple question. You say, have you ever tried to outrun a problem? You think about maybe that time in life when things weren't really going your way, and all of a sudden you said, you know what? I'm just going to run. I'm just going to do this one time. And then that one time turned into two, then turned into a couple of weeks, then turned into a couple of months. And now you've been running at this pace so long, you don't know if it's sustainable anymore. And running could be anything. You can get a slide up here on this one. Run could be anything from, one more, we'll go back one more, go back one more. There it is right there. You got it. All right, so anything can be anything from eating, drinking, busyness, overworking, scrolling on social media, or it could be shopping for you ladies. Or if you hit the trifecta like myself, it was sports, it was running, then it was building a business. And for me, again, if you want to advance it to that next picture there for you, it started with sports when I was a kid. And after I finished up my final collegiate soccer game, not to be one to sit around, the very next day, like Forrest Gump, I took off for a run. And I just started running. And so for the next 4 years, I trashed my body with marathons, half Ironmans, crazy intense workouts that were not sustainable for a normal person. But then I ran my last marathon on January 15th, 2006, just here down the street in Houston. The very next day, January 16th, I opened my business. And for the next 12 years, I threw all my heart, my soul, my passion into building the business. Just as I'd done with sports, just as I did with running. But there was one catch this time around. You ladies are going to love this. My wife was right beside me the whole entire time. She was building the business with me. It was our dream to do this. And since day one of our marriage, we were building a business. Actually, I started the business just a couple of months before we got married. And then we got married, and then we joined forces together, and we have been building the business ever since. So I could not be one person at work and then go home and be another person. I had to be true to who I was, both at work and at home, because my wife was always there just to call me out or to give me that look. And it usually happened at the time you could not say anything and there's other people around, and you just have to learn just to kind of roll with it a little bit. So when my sideways anger, kind of would come out, my sarcastic remarks would flare up a little bit, she would always go, "What's wrong with you? What's really wrong with you?" And I would always laugh it off, and say no big deal. She said, no. I think there's something deeper. I think there's something deeper going on. And I denied it for 12 years. Like a typical guy I was like, no, nothing's wrong. Just put my head down, building the business. That's what we're doing. We're building our dreams. We're helping a lot of people. We're serving a lot of, people here in our community. And she just kept coming back to that. There's got to be something else. There's something else that you're not telling me. And as I looked around at that moment there, when she would tell me these things, I would get really nervous, but I was really good at controlling situations. I could control the narrative better than anyone else. As soon as someone got really close to me and started seeing through my kind of protective armor, I knew how to throw up little smoke bombs over here, over there, over there, over there. And what I would do, I was just bury my head right back down into growing the business more and more and more. And so when push came to shove, after a couple of years of denying this, not a couple of years, it was year after year after year after year after year, these little things started to pop up inside me here. Even though I was fit and healthy on the outside, I had these little elements that would pop up, and they were from headaches to heartburn to sleeplessness. I was waking up 6-7 times a night. I'm in my 20s, I'm healthy, I'm working out every day, I'm eating right, I'm doing all the things that I'm supposed to. Bleeding ulcer, digestive issues, And we won't go into the details or anything on all those things. And my mouth, and this is what's funny, every time I would go back to the dentist's office, I had a new cavity, and my gums were receding. At 27, I'm having to have mouth surgery because there's something going on. I always thought because I ate ice as a kid that, my teeth were all messed up and stuff like that. I chewed on straws, little nervous habits, we all kind of have. But for the most part, when I look at this and say, I'm probably not the one to be giving you fitness advice if this is the life that I was living. But thankfully, we can, move on from these things. So I just want to hit a pause button right here and just in this moment and just kind of stop for 1 second and say, it is hard to understand someone when you only see one part of their journey. You think about that friend who's super fit, all of a sudden they have a heart attack. Or that marriage you thought was just rock solid ends in divorce. Or that business that you thought was just killing it throughout COVID, they filed for bankruptcy, they closed their doors, financial struggles, whatnot. But what the fitness industry doesn't tell you, what I've been in for the last 20 years, is that the key to your health, the key to your waistline, the key to sticking to a healthy diet, the key to working out on a regular basis, sleeping like a baby, waking up ready to go, avoiding burnout, all the things that we promise you as an industry that you can get has more to do with your personal issues than the workout that you do or the food that you eat. In other words, if you see this here, see there's a hidden relationship between your personal story and your current health. Now, I know that's going to make some of you squirm just a little bit because you're like, oh, you start to get into my closet, starting to talk about things that we don't talk about. But as we go through this little journey here, you're going to see how these dots start to connect. And those of you who are Enneagram people, I'm an Enneagram 5, so I live in my head and I love to connect dots. So just ride with me here on this for me. So I love to look at this here and to say throughout all the years, this personal story that I have, okay, we can go back actually one slide here so we won't get too crazy distracted on all this stuff here. Well, yeah, we are super complex individuals on all this. So I'll go back to this story with my wife when she called me out one day. In the middle of the day, we went home to grab lunch. I had said some sarcastic words, walked out into the driveway. We had gotten into a little bit of an argument. And she just looked at me and she said those words that I don't think anyone in a marriage, let alone any relationship, wants to hear. She says, I'm done. I need to not be around you. Right there in that moment, 1:30 in the afternoon, 30 minutes before I had to be back to work. I know no sweet talk, no apology was going to make up for what I had done to her for all these years of just denial and denial and denial. I knew I was going to have to stop running and turn right there at that moment and just face the problems, face these issues, face my personal story that had been wreaking havoc on the inside of my body through all these years. And as someone who loves to be in control, I looked up at her and I said, look, I'm going to tell you something, but you're not going to ask me any questions. Complete control move, right? I said, I will only say this if you agree to that. She said, yes. And very nervously, I looked up from her and I said, I was physically, sexually, verbally, and mentally abused for 7 years. And what felt like an eternity of sitting there was probably only a couple of seconds. But I knew when I said those words for the first time ever in 25 years came out of my mouth. I knew my life was changed forever. And as we looked throughout all these last 15 years, working with clients over and over, day in, day out, those who make the turn and finally make their healthy lifestyle sustainable are the ones that come to peace with their story and the ones that follow. We can get the roadmap back up there. These 5 steps, there's nothing revolutionary about them. You look at them and you go, well, that looks like any other fitness plan that's there. Right, it is. But when you get into it and you start following it step by step by step, with the peace of mind of understanding your story and how that drives your current repetitive behaviors, you start to begin to see that, oh, there's a reason I fell off the wagon. Oh, there's a reason why that I always go to that food. Oh, there's a reason why I always self-sabotage in the moment. So we'll dive into these here and we'll kind of unpack them just a little bit. We won't get too crazy deep with them. But I just want to introduce the topics to you here as we work kind of from left to right here and just discover your workout style. If we can get to slide 1 on this one. And those of you who have notes, there's a notes handout section there in your piece of paper there too as well. If you want to follow along, there's some blanks, and there all you type A's will really get kind of distracted because I'm not filling in some of the blanks there for you on this one. But so we look at this and say, hey, your first step up, your workout style, if you will. Think about it as just like the style in which you dress. All right. If you're like me, you like efficiency. I got about 4 pairs of the same shirt, maybe just a couple of different colors, same pairs of jeans, 2 shoes, I'm good to go. Any combination of it, I don't have to ask questions about it. It's just there. So for me, working out is very much an agenda. On Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I go lift weights. On Tuesday, Thursday, and maybe one day on the weekend, I'll do what I call conditioning. Some of you might call it cardio. I just don't like the word, so I'll just say conditioning. It's been like that for 20 years for me. If I miss a Monday, lifting weights on Monday, I just pick back up on a Tuesday and keep rolling with it there. Nothing too big. Some of you are going to be like, man, that's awesome. Some of you are going to say that schedule sounds like a stick in the mud. All right. Some of you might be like my wife. You're a little bit more of a checklist person. You're going to pull out your planner. You can pull out your pencil. You're still going to write it down, even though there's this great technology that we carry around in our pockets all day long. But you're going to carry that little binder with you, and you're going to call up a girlfriend. You're going to say, hey, on Thursday at 3 o'clock, do you want to work out? And you'll schedule your workouts for the week with your friend. And then you'll schedule them in that moment because why? Because you can catch up and you can be held accountable by your friend there. And my wife has done that. I've watched her over and over. I fight with her over. I'm like, why do you not use your phone? Just put it in your phone. I like to write it down. I'm like, okay, you know what? After 15 years of marriage, I don't fight with her anymore with it. So some of you too as well, a little bit more sporadic. You like to kind of, when you wake up in the moment, you're the reason why there's like impulse items at the checkout aisle. You know, you just grab it just because you're there. You're like, oh, I never knew I needed that. And then you grab it. That's the same way that you choose your workouts. You wake up that morning and you're like, today I feel like rock climbing. And then you wake up tomorrow and you're like, today I feel like doing yoga. And then you wake up the next day and you're like, you know what? I don't feel like doing anything. I'm not going to do anything at all. And that's okay. If that is the way you are, the key is to be self-aware, to understand your preference, your way of doing things. Because if your friend is someone who's this kind of every other day, they like to do something different, and then you're a lot like myself, where you're, you know, I do the same thing all the time. Like you look at that friend and you go, man, I don't know how they do it. I don't like to work out with them. You push them away. You say, hey, they do something completely different than I do on this one. That's okay. And then the last group of you, you're more a little systematic thinking. You're a little bit more blueprint, if you will. You like to master things. And that's like if you want to get in there and you want to master a deadlift or a kettlebell swing or get super technical. We see these guys when they start talking about their golf swings. And well, if I just turn my hand this way, did you see it? That way, that way. And they think that's the key to making everything work for them on. So there are different groups. There's 4 different types of people that when you come into a gym or whether you go out for a run or whatever, the key is to be sure that you understand how you like to operate. Because never fails at the end of the year, right? You start seeing these 7-day detoxes, 20-day this and 90-day that and stuff. But if you're someone who's a little bit more big picture thinker, you think a 7-day program is going to work for you? No, because it's going to be too detailed, too rigid, too concrete. I'm not going to follow steps 1 through 10. I just need to be all over the place here with it. And if you're someone like myself, you look for 90-day programs and you can change every 90 days. It's perfect. You just flow with it there. But there's one catch to this about your workout style, just like it is our changing of the seasons when it comes to our wardrobe. If you're still wearing 1990s gear like I was when I met my wife in 2006, she's going to politely say, hey, it's time to change your stuff. All right, you need to change up your routine here, Alyssa. The same thing goes with your workout. If you used to do something, I hear this more from guys than anything. If you did this back in high school football, or if you did this back in high school PE class or something like that, and you're like in your 40s and 50s and 60s, it's not the same thing to train like that. We don't train like that anymore. All right, we've got to advance our thinking just a little bit when it does come to those things. The next stop on the roadmap here, if you will, is going to be talking about striving for 5. That's strive for 5 workouts a week. Keyword being strive. Scripture says strive for perfection, knowing that we're not going to attain it. Same thing here in this one is strive for 5 workouts. I always tell people this is like stopping at Buc-ee's. How many of you have ever stopped at Buc-ee's before? Oh, look, I've already got you in my pocket here with this one. Buc-ee's is like the destination. When you leave town, if you've never been to Buc-ee's before, there's one probably coming close to you here before long, but it's like a gas station paradise. Like people stop. It's like a pilgrimage. And you're like, oh, we haven't been on the north side of town yet. Oh, they're not opening a new one on the south side. There's one is it Fairhope, Alabama or something like that? I mean, it's like, we got to go to the Buc-ee's. It's like what it is, it's consistency when I go to grandma's house, all right, we always stop at the one on 45. We always stop there. Regardless if my kids have to use the restroom, we need gas, it does not matter, we're stopping. Why do we stop? I don't know why. Half the time we don't ever buy anything. We just walk in there and you just go, it's part of our routine. It's the consistency. And it doesn't matter if it's raining, if it's cold, if it's hot. Again, like I said, if we need gas or we don't, we stop. And the same thing goes with your workouts. When you start to get into this habit of just striving for 5 workouts, regardless if you feel like it or you don't, it is just get up and do something. A 10-minute walk will work for you. If you're already someone who likes to walk or likes to run or likes to ride a bike, maybe every once in a while, pull up a YouTube video and start doing some body weight stuff. And if you're someone who only lifts weights, maybe go for a walk. This isn't anything revolutionary, right? The key to making this sustainable isn't to crush yourself like you're 18 or 25 or wishing that you were back in your younger days again. The key to it is training with tomorrow in mind, meaning that you work yourself out today, but you're thinking about tomorrow. Because a lot of times we think about these workouts right now, just crush yourself and lay on the ground and then take a selfie and post it and tell all your friends how awesome you are. And then you go to your day at work and you're like, your head's bobbing halfway up there. You go home, you're irritable that night, with your spouse or your family. You wake up the next day, you're groggy, chug a lot of caffeine to get you up and get you moving throughout the rest of the day. So you see this vicious cycle that starts. But when you train with tomorrow in mind, then all of a sudden this becomes something that's truly sustainable. Next stop up, this is it. This is where we start to kind of divide the room possibly here. If you ever want to divide a room, start talking politics and religion, I just start talking about food, all right? Because food is one of those things that, this is the best way to think about this. What's the longest relationship that you've ever had? What's that? Yourself? No, that's actually a great one. I've never heard that one. No one's ever said that before. Some people have thrown out there, my spouse. Some people say my team. I've always been rooting for my team. Some of the ladies might say my jeans. These are my jeans. This is perfect. And then I've done that to my wife and thrown them into the dryer, and then I get an earful later on because I wasn't paying attention when I put it in there. But no, the longest relationship you've ever had was with food. Think about that. Since day one, food has been a part of your life. Every major celebration, growing up, every holiday, your first date in the 7th grade when you ask someone out to go to the school dance. Later on, when you're in high school, when you got the first drive and pick up your date, where did you go? You go to eat somewhere. Graduations, weddings, birthdays, passings of loved ones, everything is surrounded by food. So I'm not up here to try to talk you out of your beliefs when it comes to food. I always tell people I'm food agnostic. Like I do not fall one way or the other. But whether you were in the paleo camp, or you're in the vegetarian or vegan camp, or if you're somewhere in the middle in what they call the pagan camp, if you will, hey, whatever, it's a thing. All right, we just need words. What I say all the time here, and what we try to encourage our clients, the best place to start is simply fill, as this picture is showing you here, fill up half your plate with vegetables. Make half your plate green. And this is technically my favorite meal here, pizza and a salad. And you go, regardless if you're going to Raising Cane's, regardless if you're going to Chick-fil-A, regardless if you're going to a pizza place, wherever you're going out and about nowadays, you can get a salad. You can get a little bag of vegetables. Even at McDonald's, you can get a bag of vegetables. All right? It does not matter where you're at. What you have to be mindful of is in that moment, what is that food doing for you? Is it filling a need that you're actually hungry? Because if so, then anything will do, right? Your vegetables will fill you up. But if it's trying to fill an emotional void at that moment, you need all the sugary, salty, crunchy stuff that you can possibly imagine that's going to satisfy that deep urge inside you to grab whatever it is that you possibly can and devour it there. So again, as we look at the food side of it all, just simply divide your plate in half. It's the simplest place to start. And I always tell you this, don't think about breakfast. Think about this for lunch and for dinner. Because sometimes to tell people to eat breakfast, put vegetables at breakfast is just such like a foreign concept. I'll tell you this little funny side note. Obviously, we go to church here. We go to one of the parents' Sunday school classes there. Parents with young children, I think is technically our name of our group. One morning, we're the ones that are bringing food for the group, all right? And we come in there with vegetables, a side salad, but it's like in a little egg casserole off to the side. And you would have thought... just the looks from people that were like, where are our donuts? Where are the pastries? Where are the kolaches? I have no idea. But it's funny, as soon as we did it once, next week, the next group did it. And the next group. And then everybody was like, I've been trying that. Sometimes we just need permission to break the rules and just say, hey, you can have vegetables for breakfast. But right now, don't worry about it. For the next 90 days, just simply try to do this. At lunch and at dinner, fill up half your plate with vegetables. 90 days is good because it's short enough to be, a challenge for you there. It's 90, and it's long enough to be a realistic, I think, just kind of, yeah. If I'm really going to stick to this, 90 days is kind of that goal to get to, right? Do it for 3 weeks, no big deal, right? You get to 90 days, like all of a sudden you give yourself a pat on the back and say, man, I've really done something here, all right? And especially after 90 days, after filling up only one half of your plate with vegetables, you might look at the other side and go, maybe I could change up what's over there on the other side of it. So it's baby stepping your way in. It's getting these small little victories as you step forward and then you move across the roadmap here. Up next, this is one of these things that we talk about when we're sleeping. The goal is to sleep 7+ hours. All right, the goal. I just say the goal to it all here. The trouble with sleep is that you've got 3 camps here. People who say, I'll sleep when I'm dead. People who say, I toss and turn all night long. My mind won't stop racing. And then you have others who sleep like a baby. Those of us, we don't like you, but you sleep like a baby and you wake up, you're raring to go. It's like my wife. Like within 3 minutes, she's got that little nervous twitch that lets me know that she's already asleep. I'm like, I haven't even finished turning the light off yet, and she is already completely done, So, you're going to have some sleep issues along the way. But I'll tell you this is one of these things Roger's kind of alluded to earlier there as far as like just taking rest. There's a great book. If you got notes, I would suggest that you take this down. The Rest of God is the name of the book. The Rest of God. It talks all about the Sabbath and the importance of keeping the Sabbath. But I got this line there that I just don't want to, I couldn't memorize it, so I'm just going to read it to you. It says, sleep is the self-abandonment of control, power, and identity. If you're where I'm from, somebody wouldn't say amen. They would say that dog can hunt, okay? That is one of those statements that you just go, let me read it to you again. It says, sleep is a self-abandonment of control, power, and identity. It goes on, we direct nothing, we master nothing, or we don't get ahead when we sleep. In sleep, we become infants again, utterly vulnerable, completely defenseless, and totally dependent. Like, that's just worth the price of the book. So I would suggest they go pick that up. But when we think about it, it's like, yes, we might be physically tired, but most of us are emotionally, psychologically tired. Those of us who say we can't stop running, our minds can't stop running in the middle of the night. Most of the time it's thinking about getting ahead. It's that rat race. I've got to push forward. This needs me, that needs me, this needs me. And so you just get yourself all worked up. And for those of you who say, you know what, I'll sleep when I'm dead, you fall into the same camp as well. There's not a peace within you to be able just to lay down and fall asleep naturally. Now, I'm not one for 5 steps or 5 essential oils or 5 supplements that you should possibly do before bed. I like to go old school on this. Very simple technique. You may have done this when you were a kid. Maybe you do it with your kids right now. Just create a bedtime routine. Revolutionary, right? It's free. Doesn't have to do anything. But create a bedtime routine. Roger said, hey, get the screens out of there an hour before bed. If that's part of it, that's part of it. Maybe you read. Maybe you take a bath. Maybe you slow down a little bit. But the last thing that we need to do right before we go to bed is to be scrolling on our phones, surfing on the computers, all right? Maybe getting in arguments with a loved one, maybe laying down next to the person in the bed that you have some kind of disagreement with and you just don't want to talk about it. Because I think about if you try to take those things into going to sleep, what is your body going to do on the inside? It's going to stay all jazzed up, right? It's never going to relax enough. So when you create a bedtime routine, what ends up happening is that you start to create comfort within your body that tells it to say, hey, now's the time to kick in the melatonin. We don't have to go buy the supplement for it. We can do this naturally. If we create that safe space within our own bedroom, within our own bed, that we can lay down here and we can be at peace, as it said here, totally dependent in that moment. So as we get to the last step here on the roadmap, this is the kicker. This is the one place, I think, within this whole roadmap that I would love to start here, but I can't. Because this is truly the catalyst for the other 4 to happen. If you're not eating right, if you're not sleeping right, if you're not moving your body on a regular basis, if you're not self-aware enough, then none of this is going to be possible for you to continue to keep going with it. When we seek accountability, people like to think about accountability to a scale, accountability to some kind of personal trainer. That's not what I'm talking about. What we're talking about is that you acknowledge your personal story with the most important person in your life, and that's you. See, early on, I was challenged by a leadership coach to do what he called a self-check. And this self-check here, if we throw it up there on it, is a very simple exercise. It involves a pen and a paper, not your computer, not your phone, but a pen and a paper. And it's about investing time over a week or 2 weeks' time, 20 to 30 minutes at a time, to write out your personal story. The highs and the lows, warts and all. But what happens is when you start to come to terms with the story that's inside you, you'll start to feel this angst start to build up in you. And you might take a couple of times to write it. It took me 3 times before I was completely honest with that piece of paper. You don't have to share it with anybody. You can burn it when you get done. You can throw it away. You can put it in a shredder. You do whatever it is that you want to do with it. But the most important person that you need to acknowledge this story to is yourself. Because if not, we're going to continuously keep spinning our wheels, chasing after fad diets, chasing after the next workout program, chasing after this new weight loss thing, vowing that we're always going to eat better, vowing that we're going to try to get to bed earlier, going to buy these supplements, whatever it is that you might go to get yourself fit and healthy. This is the key step to making that a reality. So as I told you before, I came up there, I told my wife, and I said, hey, she told me, we're done, we're finished. And I admitted to her about that 7-year journey for me. And when it came down to writing this on a piece of paper, it took me 2 weeks to do it. I'd write it, I'd walk away, go back, I'd write a little bit more, put it away. I get really emotional. I go out, I go for a run, I go for a bike ride, I go work out, I'd get away from people. Being an introvert at heart, that wasn't very hard for me to do. So I snuck away and did this process over and over and over. And the more raw that I got with it, the more this feeling of anxiety just started building up inside me. And I'll be straight up honest with you. It is the hardest thing that you can possibly do, is to put this down on a piece of paper. Harder than any grueling workout of trying to burn off 5,000 calories or trying to stick to a crazy diet for 30 days that you know is not sustainable. But when you take the time to write this down, you'll start to connect dots about how your personal story is driving your current behaviors. So look at this. So I told you, sports were my initial journey of distraction, of kind of relieving myself of the pain that was going on. You see, when I was 10, I had a coach that stepped into my life. And he casted this vision. He says, you know what? You can become somebody if you just work hard enough. You can get a scholarship. You can get out of this town. You can make something of yourself. And for the next 7 years, I thrived on that vision. I won every athletic award that you could possibly think of. I've got every high school honor, president of my class, 5th grade through 12th, every American Legion award that you could possibly think of, Boys State. I was thriving under this vision of becoming somebody. But that coach, that mentor of mine, the individual who pushed me harder than anybody else I could possibly imagine, was also this person that would grab a rope and tie me up just like this, hundreds of times. And in that moment of writing this down on a piece of paper, I knew something had to change. It's ironic that this conference today is titled Grab the Rope. It's ironic that Roger's journey was transformed when he slammed the rope. It's ironic that a rope that was used to restrain me at one time is now becoming a lifeline for so many others, if you accept it. When you step back and you write your story down, you just start to connect all the dots about how God's working in your life. From a story that started 30 years ago to where we're at today. If I had not taken the steps to come at peace, come to terms with my personal story, and on top of that, making sure that I was eating right, working out, sleeping right, I wouldn't be here with you today. I'd probably be divorced. I would be passing on this shame, this anger, this just bad attitude to my 2 young girls. And who knows what 3 more years of carrying that shame and stress would have done to my heart. But when we look at things here, when we look at this and you say, okay, this is my moment. Zig Ziglar always used to say is, you know what, you take that hot bath, but eventually it gets warm. You got to take a bath again. You got to take a bath again. It's a process. It's layers upon layers upon layers. Writing that story down gave me enough courage to step away, to go find counseling, seek counseling. Went into a couple of weeks of intensive therapy to begin my work, to begin my processing with it all. And since then, I've been able to come back and start to share the story more and more and more and more. And now at a gym that you come to for sets and reps, you now get this little piece of a side story that people are starting to have conversations beyond just the workout, beyond of, hey, can you just recommend this new supplement? They're saying, hey, do you have a good person I could talk to? Do you have someone who specializes in this? Do you have someone who specializes in that? But it all comes down to, will you do the work? It is painful. It is hard. It is excruciating. I'm not going to lie to you. But when you think about this, you can go, oh, well, his story is different than mine. His is a little bit more intense than mine. All of our stories are on a spectrum. Some, again, are more intense than others. But there's also those of you who have this kind of just constant drip. I always say it's like water dripping on a rock. Eventually, you know what happens? It creates that hole. And eventually it breaks through to the other side, because it's just that low grade tension that's just building and building and building and building again. So we don't need another method to try harder. If trying harder was the key to being fit and healthy, I think all of us in here would be in the Hall of Fame, right? That is one thing that I will not deny everybody doing. We put forth the effort. Now, if we could just channel that effort and work just as hard on these 4 questions, if you will. I think we might have them up here at the very end. There you go. If you want something to take a picture of, this is the hardest workout I could possibly give you. Like some of you think like burpees or this kind of challenge or that kind of challenge or whatever. Sit down and wrestle with this. And the best time to do this is when you leave today, you go to your car. It's a cool day, so this may not work out. You might have to work pretty fast on this one, so your car's not going to be as hot. But in that 30 seconds to 60 seconds that it takes for your car to cool down a little bit, pull out your phone, pull out the notes section on it, and simply write down real quick answers to these 4 questions. Because you already know the answers to them. Just like me, and just like when my wife stepped up and said, hey, I'm done, you just need somebody to challenge you to start to come to terms with that story. Because when you do, when you start to find that peace within that story, I promise you, you'll go to bed easier tonight. I promise you will wake up tomorrow morning feeling lighter than you have ever felt in your entire life. And you did not do one workout. You did not do one diet plan. You just need the courage to simply slow down, start putting your story together, connecting the dots. And that is what is ultimately the key to making a healthy lifestyle sustainable.